There are many problems that we are dealing with as human beings. We cannot really accurately trace the source of all of them when we try. They look very complicated. They look like they are all over the place. Corruption, tribalism, nepotism, world hunger, housing crisis, uh, education, our curriculum, the workspace, the rent prices, everything. But today I want to attempt to define that there is one thing that is the source of all human problems. Every problem that we experience as human beings, we can almost trace it to what I'm about to talk about now. And it's something that I have to heavily borrow from the yogic sciences. The yogic, okay, black marker. I have to heavily borrow from the yogic sciences, which in many areas we know as yoga. And yoga means union, uh, the union of um, what we might see as the individual and the collective. That is yoga. It's not the twisting and turning, it's not the different postures and the different things like that. There's a deeper level to yoga. There's a whole system behind this. Different books written, different practices. So we are going to borrow from the yogic sciences. And remember I say yogic science, which I would say is the study of the human system and the cosmos as a whole, the yogic sciences. I'm going to borrow from that to try and explain the thing that ties everything together. All human problems come from this one thing that I'm about to talk about. And I hope that you follow me and that I will not lose you along the way. So, according according to the yogic sciences, the mind is divided in four parts. We have the body which is your intellect. These are Sanskrit words. Sanskrit is an Indian language. You have buddhi, you have manas, which is memory. You have ahankara, which is your identity. You have chitta. I will dwell on the three for the relevance of what I want to talk about today. Everything ties back to that one thing which I want to say is really the root of majority, if not all, the problems of human beings. And once we fix this one thing, a lot of things will fall in place. A lot of things will naturally fix themselves. I would put it that way. So the human mind is divided into these four aspects. Your body is your intellect. This is like the arithmetic and logic unit in IT terms, in computer terms. There's an arithmetic and logic unit. This is where you process all mathematical situations, the way you process all your where the logic is the base of logic. We say it's logical. This makes sense. This is the logical aspect of who we are. This is a portion of the mind, the body, the intellect. 1 plus 1 is 2. 10 plus 10 is 20. 25 plus 25 is 50. So this is the intellect. And in the intellect, everything must make sense. The sharper the intellect, the better it works. The intellect is like a knife, right? And it's a cutting instrument basically. And when you have a cutting instrument, we want it to be as sharp as possible. This is the intellect. That is that portion of the mind that goes to that. So intellect. Next is manas. Manas is memory. And memory is really what fuels the intellect. You have to remember that this is my family. You have to remember where you come from. You have to remember the memory aspect of things is manas. It is what enables us to function, because your intellect cannot function without your memory. It functions from that. It fuels from that. Because this is, I would say this is like a processing thing. What do you process? The stuff from your memory which you put in there. What I'm working on right now, I'm standing here, I know I'm a man, in somewhere, I know I'm from this family, I know I'm a student, I know I'm running this, all that memory throughout life. And it's not just in the head alone, but the genetic memory kind of in the system. Everything that comes from there, manas, which is the memory. Your intellect cannot, right? Like for a system designed to give certain output, the processing there, that when you enter in the numbers, it's like a calculator. There's a processing unit that processes, but you can put 1 plus 1, what, but if you don't input, there's no input, there can be no output. Because there's input, then it is processed, then you have output. So this is the processing unit here, the intellect. But the stuff that you input is your memory. You take this from there, recognizing what things are in the world. Remembering, you learn to walk as a child, but now you remember how to walk almost automatic. You learn a language at some point. Now whenever you are in a certain context, you can pull out that language. When you are among the Bambos, you speak Oshuambo because you understand the concept because of your memory, right? So intellect should be as sharp as possible because it's a cutting instrument. And then manas is your memory, which enables you, the intellect, to work. And then the part that I really want to focus on is your ahankara, your identity. Your identity. Because as you begin to pick up things about the world, you realize you are born in this place, in this family, you have this, all these things, and then you form. It's like your identity is like a collection of memory, solidified to function to serve a particular purpose. And then that becomes your identity. And the buddhi, your intellect, is a slave to your identity. Your intellect only works, everything your intellect does is to serve the identity. We would say at the memory level, there are a lot of fragmented pieces. But when we move to identity, like everything is well structured in place to serve a particular purpose. It's a solidified thought that your intellect now must defend, protect, and advance. So why am I saying that once you understand this model, you can understand where all the human problems are. The problem with human beings is the major problem on this planet is limited identity. Because your intellect works to serve your identity. Every time, whatever your identity is, your intellect, the logical aspect of you, or the part that is supposed to be logical, to wrap around and serve whatever you have identified as. This is where I think maybe we can begin to understand identity politics. We begin to understand the concepts of gender ideology, where all these things are really coming from for people, and why people are so glued and attached to this thing that once you say you don't address them by their pronouns, they become offended, they become defensive, because as far as they are concerned, you are not just attacking a concept, you are attacking them because they have identified as, right? And this is where a lot of human problems really come from, a limited identity. Again, we go back to the in the yogic systems, right? In the Indian way of life, the Hindus, a child from the age of 0 to I think 12, if I'm not mistaken, they were never taken into any system of formal schooling in a way, like school the way we know it now, because education was always looked at as an empowerment, and it was always said that you never empower a limited identity. You should never ever at any point empower a limited identity. So what they did with children from the age of 0 to I think 12, they never taught them anything really about that has to do with education, because education has always been empowerment. Because he said, in this stage here, you work on the child's identity so that you teach them that they are a universal being, universal, that in whatever they do is to serve all of the existence. Everything they did to serve humanity, to serve other people. You don't do, because in the yogic, like I said, yoga is union. And really to understand that union is really to say that you, for example, we know that women's bodies are in sync with the cycles of the moon, right? So having that concept, right, to understand that, I think the lines of longitude along the like that around us, right, is like 24. That's why there are 24 hours in a day. Just to sidetrack a little bit to help and understand, right? This would be the Earth. There are these lines here, right, of longitude. These are 24 because 24 hours is one full rotation of the Earth around its axis, right? So also, if I'm not mistaken, there's something like a normal healthy person also takes 24,000, I think, if I'm not mistaken, breaths in a day. So if the planet begins to spin a little bit faster, then we are all in trouble who are on the planet. The moon, the cycles of the moon are in sync with the cycles in the woman's body. So if the moon begins, maybe it's taken out of orbit or what, then it also means that there's a possibility that people on the planet will not be able to conceive, right? So the whole system is interconnected.